Have you ever written a social skills goal that sounded great on paper, but didn't actually lead to real life success for your learner? If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. We're breaking down how to move beyond checkbox goals to build social skills goals that build real social connection and confidence. Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna. We're behavior analysts who create weekly content about how to teach children with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about building social skills goals. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
So when I think of social skills, there are, different social preferences and profiles. I think about, introvert versus extrovert. Maybe you can guess which one is which amongst us. Being an introvert, I don't want to always socialize. I don't want to be going to loud public places if I'm, not in the mood for it. Where someone who loves those kind of things, hint, hint, she's next to
Me?
me, would really love to do that. But at the same time, there are still, things that I do enjoy socially, and there are still goals that I do want to have. And sometimes I might push myself out of my comfort zone, because I want to, attend a certain event or go to a conference or, meet new people. So we're not with social skills, we're not trying to change anyone's personality or make an introvert into an extrovert or make somebody really social if they don't want to be social. But there are still goals that could be accomplished or values that could be reached through, learning new skills.
I think I would probably curl up in a ball if I had to be an introvert. I did it during COVID, and it was very, very difficult for me. And
I
my
thrived.
my husband thrived, and I was like, "What? You cannot change anybody at the core of their personality, even if we're behavior analysts. Please, please don't even try."
But social skills really are an important, core quality of life skill. And unfortunately, when a lot of us are first exposed to teaching social skills, it is around, turn taking and playing board games.
My turn.
How many
Your
times
turn.
have we taught my turn, your turn?
How many typically developing peers do you know who say my turn, your turn? None. Zero. Please stop teaching my turn, your turn.
Or what about the skill of saying, can I play? Also, not something that we encourage teaching.
No, you can't play. That's what kids will say. Can I play with you? No, you can't. Let's try and teach something else to get in there. Can you tell what my pet peeves are?
So these are not the social skills we're talking about. We're not trying to teach, robotic skills that students will memorize in order to just kind of get you out of their face, right? Because that's really what they're doing. They're being like, I'll finish this board game and then you'll leave me alone. But are they really, working towards their values? But when we talk about social skills, it's about the things that will help our learners, accomplish their values. And that's going to look different for every learner.
Let's think about meaningful outcomes, right? And let's talk about what is meaningful to a learner. So even to an extrovert who apparently I don't understand, I'm just kidding. But what's even meaningful to an introvert? An introvert still needs to go out into the world and interact with society. So what types of goals do they need? And again, social skills is so broad, so we do need to define what that is. But we can say, okay, you need to go out into the environment. Maybe we can start there, and maybe we can start teaching social skills in the context of community. So, within your community, you do need to have these specific things. You do need to walk with an adult for safety purposes. You do need to know when to stop at a red light and when to go on a green light. You do need to know how to interact with a cashier, maybe, possibly, or even just say, hey, my checkout machine is broken when you're going through, self-checkout. So those are the kinds of social skills that can be taught to everyone.
It's true. And I think if you talk to your learner and get to know what's important to them, sometimes, individuals with autism struggle socially, but really do want friendships. And so knowing that will help us, help them work towards that. Some learners that we have really don't care to have friends. That's not their goal, but maybe their goal is to, have a job, or maybe their goal is to buy their favorite snack at the store. And if their goal is to buy their favorite snack at the store, then like Shayna was saying, some of the social skills that they need might just be learning how to navigate a crowded store or ask for help if they need it. And those are really appropriate, but also really important social skills. They do not need the turn taking or the board games. And if they don't really want friendships and they're very happy where they are socially, then we don't need to teach them that.
I have an older gentleman who really, really wants a friend, but could care less about conversation, could care less about really everything you do to get the friend in terms of maintaining a friendship and all of that kind of stuff. But he really loves Subways, and all he really wants to do is perseverate with somebody else who loves Subways. And luckily, there's lots of places online where he can meet somebody. Be careful with that. It does need to be supervised, but he can meet somebody else who has a common interest, and then they're able to get together, and talk about Subways, for instance. So there are opportunities for people who don't want to engage in conversation or only want to engage in conversation about one particular topic to meet other people like that as well. So it is doable, even though people may not want to be taught our typical conversation skills or the typical way to maintain friendships.
So I think the most important thing in teaching social skills is really thinking about what's the end goal? What's the long-term goal that's going to be meaningful for this learner? Hopefully it's some sort of like, independence or if their goal is more inclusion within a community, confidence, any one of those skills that we can help them get there, and which are the specific social skills that they would need to accomplish that long-term goal.
Even, we were just talking about older individuals, but I'm even thinking with younger individuals, they may not want to be social, and their social skills are going to look very different than an adult social skills. But if they're starting school or they're starting preschool, even though they don't want to be participating in groups necessarily, we do need to teach them how to sit in circle, because that's the goal of the school, how to raise their hand and how to participate, and then also how to self-advocate and say, I need a break and I need to, go into my quiet zone at the back.
So some of the most common mistakes that we've seen in teaching social skills, the first one is going to be approaching social skills as a checklist. It is definitely not a checklist. We do offer in our membership some assessments that are kind of checklist based, or it looks like a list of skills. They're not meant to be taught incrementally. They're not meant to be taught in order. It's meant to really be kind of a menu. Like, what is the long-term goal of this learner and what are the individual skills that will help them get there? But the goal is not to like take a certain assessment and just try to fill in all those boxes, meaning if they don't know how to, I don't know, request something from a peer, we're going to teach that even though it's not necessarily so relevant. We have to really look at what's going to be relevant and pick those skills based on the individual learner.
Another common mistake is something taught very rote or unnatural. A lot of the time when we are in ABA, we do teach things rotely, and we do teach kids to memorize first, because sometimes memorization does lead to conceptualization, and there's data to support that. But if you don't move to that conceptualization, that's when you get in trouble.
And so I think that brings us to like the other common mistake is that it's not really a context. So if you are teaching it, pre-teaching a skill, or maybe like mass trialing it in advance that they memorize it a little bit, then continuing to generalize that skill and give it context. But also, is this skill useful in their life? What does their life look like? Is it a classroom? Is it a home? Is it a workplace? What is their context? Like what do they need this skill for, and what purpose does it serve? And can we then either generalize it or teach it within this natural context?
And you've seen that a lot working in schools where, kids come from a one-to-one ABA center and they've been taught some of these skills in isolation, but then they're, for lack of a better word, plopped in a classroom and never taught to generalize some of those skills. So making sure that generalization phase happens.
And I've seen so many learners who, were kind of taught social skills the same way they were taught a lot of other skills, and it becomes like very rote, and their biggest reinforcement is stop socializing with me, right? Like, stop telling me to interact with you, because it becomes like a chore, and not really tapping into what is reinforcing for this learner. It's not just the completion of this interaction, but it might be this person, has access to things that you don't, or it's a friendship, or if it's a relationship, and really incorporating that within the interaction as well.
So the question is, how do we build social skills goals?
So we do want to start with some sort of assessment. And like I said, we're not building off of this assessment in terms of like covering all the skills, but assessing this learner, like what's meaningful for them. I love using ACT type assessments, or talking to them about their values is a great way to incorporate some social skills. We have a whole other podcast on teaching social skills using ACT. So go check that one out. And what that does is you're really just talking about what they value, what is, could be reinforcing for you. Is it relationships? Is it friendships? Is it jobs? Is it independence? And thinking about that, and then working backwards and choosing some really specific and measurable goals for them to get there.
And ACT is really, really great for kids who can talk and tell you what they want and what their values are. If kids can't talk, finding somebody who knows them really well, whether that's you as the instructor and can observe and know what they like to do, is great. Talking to parents, talking to teachers, talking to caregivers, and seeing what is valuable within their community is also something that you can do.
So you could take some like baseline data and see, where are they at right now on these specific skills that I think that they would really need in their environment. You can then do lots of teaching, and we often will use something like role play, behavioral skills training, things like video modeling, all of these ways to teach a skill and then practice it and generalize it and reinforce it in the natural environment. And then having a way to, reassess that skill. So you can have data as you're going along, but you could also do something like pre-test, post-test style data for before you've taught the skill and after you've taught the skill.
I think the biggest thing to think about, Shira, when we're talking about data is it meaningful? So I've seen so many times whether it's a social skills group, whether it's ABA therapy, whether it's a classroom, people might be taking data for the sake of taking data because, I have to, I was told to by my supervisor, or this is ABA, so I need to take some kind of data. But really ask yourself, like, why am I taking this data? What purpose do these data serve? And making sure that you go, oh, okay, I really want to see learning in this particular area, or I really want to see if there's generalization here. And then you can adjust your data accordingly.
And then in that, you're thinking about like, what would success really look like? And the natural environment is going to give you so many cues. So even if you're working with a learner, one-to-one in a clinic or separate from their natural environment, take a trip and visit the places that they spend most of their time. I have an example of it, a student who is very verbal. She happens to get really mad at everyone in her class because she interprets everything as kind of a threat, that if they're just like looking at her the wrong way or standing too close to her, she'll say that they're hurting her. And but we're working on teaching her some of these perspective taking skills, but also a little bit of tolerance, a little bit of advocacy. And we're getting all this information from what's really happening in the natural environment. Happens to be that, her goal is not necessarily, peer interactions and friendships, but she wants to be in the classroom. And so if we want to be in the classroom, you're going to have to, figure out how to navigate all these challenges when you really do think somebody is, going to hurt you. What could you do about it?
Absolutely. And, when we talk about teaching, people are like, okay, so Shayna, Shira, you've talked about some of these goals. How do you teach them? I think one of the really good ways to teach is through role play. Role play, role play, role play. If you can't role play, maybe do it through pretend play. If a student's young enough, I mean, I wouldn't do pretend play with a 16-year-old, but with a, 3 or 4-year-old, you can use dolls, you can use puppets and really role play with these dolls or with these puppets. Ouch, Sally hurt me, or ouch, Sally didn't hurt me. So I can't say ouch, but now I can because she did here, right? Or hey, Sally's going into the store, let's talk about what this person should do. And using that kind of thing is really, really great through pictures, diagrams. Video modeling is really awesome. Model Me Kids, Everyday Speech. Those are 2 really great video modeling softwares that I use. So lots of different ways to teach social skills.
And always remember to involve the learner in setting those goals because, like I said, I wouldn't want somebody to force me to do social settings that I wasn't interested in. And so, especially with older students, they get to choose. They get to choose whether they enjoy going to a party or whether they want to stay home at night and, watch TV. And I think that's okay. So, really involving them in setting those goals. And then continuing to practice lots and lots of opportunities that we can give them to accomplish the goals that are valuable to them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely involve the learner. And like I keep advocating for people who are nonverbal. If they can't, speak for themselves, talk to somebody else. So, I work with one learner who is, I think he's about 12 now, and he is, very, very delayed. But he needs some kind of social skills. He needs to be able to go into the environment and, loud noises overwhelm him, crying babies, children, dogs, all these sounds overwhelm him because he's was in his house with really quiet, lived in the country, so he doesn't go out into the community much. But his mom was stating that one of her goals is that he's able to at least participate in the community and go if he's go get a bag of milk if they need milk, that kind of thing. So we're working on those really functional goals with him. For more information on building social skills goals, click the link in and around this video or in the description to join our next CEU event. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.